You're watching 76ers Now by Chat Sports. I'm Chase Senior. The NBA trade deadline is quickly approaching, so trade buzz starting to pick up across the NBA. And coming up on today's show, keep or trade. Let's play that game. Who should stay? Who should go on this Sixers roster going into the deadline? Be sure to join the Noti Gang, by the way. Be a real one. Hit that bell icon. Turn on your notifications. Therefore, you never miss a video that we put up and publish here on the channel. If you want to stay in the know with all things Sixers year-round, this is your go-to destination. The big three for Philadelphia: Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid, Paul George. Don't think that these players are going to get traded, and they can't get traded. Tyrese Maxey obviously staying. He is the superstar of this Sixers team, the most consistent of this big three, which this year has been a third, a little three, because Maxey's been the only one who's been bringing it. Joel Embiid ineligible to be traded, so against the rules for him to get dealt, that's just not going to happen. And for Paul George, he's having a bad year, and I don't think that anybody wants that albatross of a contract at his age. That was the risk going into this, and of course, classic Sixers, it hasn't worked out. For Guerschon Yabusele, though, we talked about him on yesterday's show, how the Sixers, going into the offseason after this year, considering the deal that they signed him to, some of these NBA contractual rules aren't going to be able to offer him a lot of money in free agency as compared to another team. And so is it smart to trade a player who has positional versatility, who can mix it up on defense down low, can get out to the perimeter, can knock down some shots from three, and can also be a player who can connect on field goals around, in, or near the basket? And so for us, might be smart to trade him away because you could get some decent value back for a player who played well for France when the pressure was on in the Olympics. That's what caused the Sixers to bring him in. And he has exceeded expectations, even though I thought he would be a diamond-in-the-rough type of player for the Sixers team. And for a playoff-level team, you have a guy who can play the 4, can play the 5, and gives you a multi-dimensional player for very cheap. This year, in less than 26 minutes played per game, 10 points per game, 5.5 rebounds, can dish it out from time to time, and the shooting number is pretty efficient. Here is the contractual details here, just to give you a reminder in case you missed yesterday's show. That's why you turn on your notifications, by the way. Since Yabusele is on that one-year deal, the Sixers will only have non-bird rights on him. So that means the Sixers can offer him only 120% of his previous salary or 120% of the minimum salary, whichever is greater. So in 2025-2026, the minimum salary projects to be roughly $2.3 million. So the Sixers could start Yabusele's next contract at roughly $2.75 million if they use non-bird rights to re-sign him. If the Sixers don't add salary for next year at the deadline, they should have enough wiggle room under the second apron to use the taxpayer MLE this offseason. $5.7 million is that mid-level exception. If another team offers Yabusele $6+ million, the Sixers cannot outbid them. So Chip, just thinking about this from a logical sense, I don't think that you can lose Yabusele for nothing. I think there's going to be a contender who wants him.
And I love what Yabusele has done. I'd love to keep him on the team. Just looking at the player, I would love to keep him. And I think even, he's already about 29 years old, but I still think he'd be great on this team. Just don't think they'll be able to re-sign him. Doesn't make any sense if you know he's going to get more than $6 million in free agency, right? I'm thinking maybe somewhere around 10, maybe even possibly $12 million if there's a team that really, really likes him. And I doubt he takes a discount. Stay with Philadelphia. So you don't want to lose him for nothing. It doesn't make sense with the direction this team is going in. There's going to be a team that wants him out there, whether that's the Thunder, possibly, in exchange for the Sixers' first-round pick back, or another team is willing to give you a protected first-round pick. I wouldn't want seconds for him, but maybe a protected first-round pick you get because of how good he's been. Again, it's just smart basketball business. It sucks losing a guy like him, given the story and everything. The Sixers are the team that gave him his second opportunity in the NBA, but the way the season's gone and the way his contract works out, just might have to trade him and just accept that fact and move on.
Yeah. Now let's move forward to Caleb Martin here, another player who the Sixers signed in free agency. And at the time, I was a big fan of that deal because He's mentally fit. He, too, has some versatility to his game. He's performed very well in the NBA playoffs, especially against a team like the Boston Celtics, who you were trying to behead and take down in the East. But this year, Celtics are great, Sixers stink. And so what's the future of Martin here? His contract, 2024-2025, that's this year, of course, $8.1 million. And if he's playing up to his standard, this is a pretty good value deal here. $8.5 million for next year, 8.9 after that, and then that player option in the final year of it, $9.3 million. This season, dealing with that shoulder injury, although the field goal numbers have been on the uptick and on the increase here with improved play, 9 points per game, 4+ rebounds. But what you love to see is the three-point percentage being at about 38%. Chip, you have a good note here, and I agree with it. You don't give up good players on good contracts. With Yabusele, he's a good player, but you're restricted due to those NBA contractual rules and the non-bird rights. With Caleb Martin, you sign him to this deal. He's been playing very well. You know what he can do when you do get back in the playoffs. Maybe that's this year, so why give him away?
Yeah, and that's the big difference, as you said, between him and Yabusele is Yabusele at the end of the season, you might lose him for nothing. Caleb Martin, he's locked in for this year plus the next 3 years. It's the first year that great deal you got him on. There's no reason to move him when he can still be a key contributing piece for you going forward the next few seasons, especially at that dollar value. There aren't very many better values in the league, really, than that contract number to get a high-impact starter at just under $9 million for the next couple of years. It doesn't make any sense, even if you can get a first-round pick for him, to trade him because, look, at the end of the day, the Sixers do have to retool and change up the roster a little bit, but I don't think go into a full-scale, tear-it-all-down rebuild after this season. You still want to be able to compete with these guys in the roster, and Caleb Martin's somebody who can allow you to do that, and so it just doesn't make sense, in my opinion, to move on from it at this year's deadline.
Yeah, and I agree with that. Kelly Oubre, this is kind of a tough one here. Really like what he did for the Sixers last year, but this year you were expecting his role and his game to grow. He even had talked about that, how now that he was staying with the team, he sensed that he could be a little bit more comfortable. Sixers paid him after he was on the vet min last year when he was a great bargain player. It was a 2-year deal with the back half of that contract, that second year being that player option. So $7.9 million this year, $8.3 next year. If he plays like he did last year, again, this is like that Caleb Martin deal. That's a pretty affordable contract here for an important player within your rotation. And the points per game number is not bad. 13.6 rebounding numbers, pretty good at 5.9. Even the field goal numbers, not bad at 45.5%, but he's under 29% from three. This is also an athletic player who can give a team an edge on the defensive side of the floor. And so for a playoff team, that could be attractive. Oubre most likely would re-sign with Philly, but is he worth 4 years, $60+ million at 29 years old? Chip, I just don't think so.
Yeah, so when Oubre took that deal last year, it was like he obviously wanted long-term security. Sixers, because of these same financial rules with Yabusele, couldn't give him a long-term deal. But he said, like, I fell in love with basketball in Philadelphia. And he's been such a fan favorite energy type of guy. I would love to keep him around. I think he fits his team so well, but I don't think he opts in his player option this offseason, so he'll be a free agent. And if the Sixers want to re-sign him, again, he's going to be looking for the contract that he can sign around 4 years, $50 to $60 million. And, man, you know, he's 29 years old, to be 30 next year. Like, is that a smart financial investment for this team? I'm not so sure. I do think you could get decent value from at the deadline, and you know, it was tough deciding on this one because I do think he's better than sort of the numbers have shown at points, and he can have a good impact and have good games. But the fact that he can leave this offseason if he wants to, again, similar to Guerschon, where this team is at, I think it just makes more sense to move on, get what you can, open up a little more space this offseason to make other moves rather than, again, risking losing another good player for nothing, which is just a bad business move in the NBA.
Yeah, and so a couple of players down here, and I think it's realistic if the Sixers continue to lose, like, yeah, you might have to be a seller at the deadline, which is the point of today's show, and obviously these are tough, emotional roster decision moves, but look, you also have to plan for the future as well. And with the Joel Embiid injury, you don't know how long that's going to linger. And so you have to start thinking about the future, because if you don't, could be in a precarious spot with all of the money that you're paying Embiid, Maxey, and Paul George, and the need still remaining on the Sixers team. So get in the comment section once more. Who should the Sixers trade at the NBA deadline currently on their roster? Drop us some names down below in the comment section right now. Our sponsor for today's 76ers now, our friends at Game Time. If you want to go to a Sixers game, college basketball game, an Eagles playoff game as they host the Commanders in the NFC Championship game, download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code CHATSPORTS for $20 off. Terms apply, first purchase only. That's the code CHATSPORTS. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Game Time specializes in tickets that decrease in price as the event gets closer. You can see the view from your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. What's also cool is a new feature called Game Time Picks, where you don't have to go through thousands of tickets to find the best seats at the best vantage point. Game Time will give you that. They have flash deals, zone deals, Game Time guarantee, where if you find a lower price elsewhere, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code CHATSPORTS, CHATSPORTS, for $20 off. Terms apply, first purchase only. Not just an app for sporting events. You can go to concerts, comedy shows, theater events, and a whole lot more. Andre Drummond, this was a great signing by the Sixers at the time, because I thought then, and I still believe now, he's one of the top backup bigs in the NBA and one of the best rebounders of this generation. Those numbers have not changed this year. He's been banged up a little bit from time to time, but when he has played, I think he's been a good force down low. He, of course, has limitations to his game. Can't spread the floor, can't shoot, but 7 points, almost 8 rebounds, almost 51% from the floor, half block per game, 19.2 minutes per. I will say something that could make Andre Drummond expendable is the play of Adem Bona. And, you know, I'm watching the Sixers over the weekend, and I'm seeing Adem Bona play well. Obviously, Jared McCain is out for the rest of the year. That was one of the bright spots of this Sixers season, being able to watch him ball out. But Adem Bona is a player who, during draft time, Chip and I were talking about, very athletic, very long, can block shots, can be a pick-and-roll guy, really good length to guard multiple positions. I think he's shown enough for us to want to see more. And if you're in a spot where you're selling, play your young players and let them develop to see what types of players they can be. Because backup big behind Embiid is always going to be an important spot. And again, we're not sure what the future is of Joel Embiid. KJ Martin, keep for now, but you could trade him this offseason. And the contract that the Sixers signed him to is that contract that they can move him as far as a salary matcher and a salary filler for another team. This year, $7.9 million, and then in 2025-2026, $8 million. Can you imagine being KJ Martin, Daryl Morey comes up to you and says, we're going to sign you to this deal because in the future we might move you just so you can be a salary matcher for a trade that we might make, but here's $8 million per year. That's pretty awesome. Before the injury back a few weeks ago, he was actually rounding into form and looked really good. 6 points per game, 3 rebounds, 61.5% from the floor, 38%, can run the floor pretty well, has some good bounce. The three-point shot, a little bit ugly as far as the form goes, can be a little bit up and down, but the number's not bad for sure. Very efficient inside the three-point arc, and I think he's a decent player to bring off the bench. Eric Gordon, trade him if you can. There could be another team that is looking for a veteran shooter who has played in the playoffs a ton. Eric Gordon has done just that. Now, the three-point numbers, 36%. He's pretty much just a three-point shooter at this point of his career. Back in his heyday, he could create off the dribble a little bit. Getting 18.5 minutes per game, for me, that's a little bit too much. But he's actually been better of late, and so could you sell another team on that? Because since New Year's Day, and we're recording this now on January 21st, he's been better from three, a shade under 45%. Reggie Jackson, another veteran who was looked at as a depth piece. You're thinking he's going to be able to have some wiggle, create for that second unit a little bit. Don't really need him on this team. Also trade him if you can. Another player who's a vet, who has a lot of playoff experience under his belt this year, getting under 12 minutes per. The production very low. The efficiency also pretty low. The Sixers never really needed to sign Reggie Jackson. You already had Kyle Lowry. You brought him back. Jeff Doughton as a backup. Look, I don't think he's much of an NBA player, but Reggie Jackson was more of that player. Oh, he's out there. Okay, let's sign him. You could have signed another backup big, for instance. You could have signed another wing instead of giving Pete Nance real NBA minutes. Like Pete Nance, he's getting real NBA minutes for a team that we thought had championship expectations and championship level talent. Come on now. So elsewhere, the Sixers should keep all of these guys. Jared McCain, Kyle Lowry has a no-trade clause. Probably did him a favor because he's from Philly at the tail end of his career, hole 17 or 18. If you're using a golf reference, Ricky Council. Justin Edwards, how about the play of him as of late? He's actually looked pretty good. And then Adem Bona, same can be said for him. If you're still rocking with us, give us a real one down below. We appreciate the real ones for watching all the way through. And if that's you, let us know.